Jim Fitzpatrick, Bridget Fitzpatrick, Dave Anderson, Dave Canton, Colin Carasquillo, Jonathan Dawson, Steve Greenfield, Adam Marburger, Jennifer Suzuki. The strongest team in retail automotive. CBT News, dealers' #1 source for news, content, and analysis. You're watching Inside Automotive with Jim Fitzpatrick.
Hey everyone, Jim Fitzpatrick. Thanks so much for joining me on another edition of Inside Automotive right here at the CBT Automotive Network. It's that time of year again, and this time a milestone for Cox Automotive as it has recently released its 15th annual, that's right, 15th annual car buyer journey study. Today I'm joined by frequent guests on the show, Jade Terreberry. She's the Senior Director of Strategic Development at Autotrader and Kelley Blue Book, and Vanessa Ton, who is the Senior Manager of Research and Market Intelligence with Cox Automotive, whose team led the study again this year. They're here to give dealers, OEMs, and those of you watching a behind-the-scenes look at their highly anticipated results for the milestone's 15th anniversary, or I should say annual car buyer journey study, and more importantly, what actions you should be taking in your business and marketing strategies because of the findings of this study. So you might want to take notes. So welcome, ladies. I really appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule to join me on the show. And Vanessa, I would like to start with you first if I can. Let's first help our audience understand what exactly the car buyer journey is and why is this study so important to dealers and OEMs alike?
Well, as you mentioned, it is our 15th annual study, and every year we track how the customers are experiencing the car buyer journey. How are they shopping? What is their dealership experience like? What are they doing online? What's their thought and strategy and sentiments around it? So it's taking all of this information and informing the industry, OEMs, dealers, lenders, everyone who would listen to us, how they can strategize from a go-to-market type of strategy and plans, but also more importantly, how do we enhance the customer experience? Because you want them to keep coming back and become lifetime customers, right?
That's right. Jade, can you share the significance of the 15th annual anniversary and why it's a sight line for the automotive industry and what it uncovers?
Well, Jim, Cox is so committed to driving these connected solutions, and it's so much bigger. Like, we often talk about what the consumer's doing or what the dealer is doing, but now everything that is happening across the ecosystem and the way it all connects, whether that is through the ownership cycle or the purchase journey, this study is the most anticipated for the whole industry because it tells us, like Vanessa said, where the consumers are, how they want to shop, what are the next steps, and then most importantly, how do we need to adjust our business practices and our focus to meet them where they are to start really connecting that shopping to buying experience.
Yeah, for sure. There's no question. This is the kind of data that dealers need. Jade, and then Vanessa, I'll go to you. What were the overall results of the 15th annual car buyer journey study, and did did any themes emerge?
Well, so lots, and Vanessa is the expert on that, so I'm going to defer to her on the big insights. However, the takeaways for me from a dealership perspective are that we're in a really good place. Consumer satisfaction is all-time high.
Wow,
and
that's
you think
good to
about
know.
with all of the disruption, the changes in technology, and where we have been over the last handful of years. We went through this post-pandemic period where we know the supply and demand imbalance was massive.
That's right.
Interest rates were so high. There was so much uncertainty, even leading up to the election, like you and I have talked about. And we're in this place now where new car inventory is back. Rates are starting to get a little better. Consumers perceive that they're getting a lot better. And so there are a lot of really cool things that Vanessa and her team uncovered in the study that she's getting ready to tell you about.
I bet. Vanessa, your turn. Anything emerged that you...
As Jade said, we saw in the data that consumer satisfaction with the shopping and the dealership experience was at an all-time high for new vehicle buyers. And we do see from a used vehicle buyer that things are leveling off. And I want to mention leveling off because the data showed us that there wasn't a huge fluctuation and shift in the data compared to other years. So Valerie likes to say this, it's not girls gone wild, but it's more moms gone mild. So that's the theme. So I talked about that first key finding that we saw about the customer journey being satisfying for new buyers and leveling off for used. Second is that we saw a high amount of commitment to the purchase journey. So people are dedicating more time to the purchase journey. So you're going to see that. Third, we're going to see more alignment between new and used buyers in terms of their commitment to the omni-channel, the digital retailing. I know, Jade, you like to say retailing, so I'll just say retailing. And we're seeing that more people, both new and used consumers, are more committed and want to do more online in the purchase steps. So that's what we're seeing. And fourth, and this is one of my favorite topics, and Jade, you and I agreed, there's more opportunities with fixed operations. And, having a great sales experience drives the service opportunity and vice versa. And that's building lifetime customers. So that's the fourth thing.
That's fantastic. Vanessa, let's look at those 4 insights that you mentioned one by one. Key insight number 1, you mentioned that new and used car dealer satisfaction levels looked favorable. Can you share what the car buyer journey study results revealed?
Well, it reveals that, as Jade had mentioned, but there's things that are driving that. One would be inventory levels are stronger and there's more availability, therefore people are more satisfied, right? And with more availability, we saw that people are more aligned with the price, like they're less sticker shock, so they're more satisfied with that part of it. So we're seeing that part of it, and we're seeing because of that, consumers are telling us, hey, things are, inventory are more transparent, pricing is more transparent, I have more digital tools. The dealers don't have to pressure me so much into buying, so therefore it's a better experience. But the other reason why it's a better experience, especially for the new buyers, is because they said, you know what, that transition from doing what I need to do online as I'm shopping, it went very smoothly when I stepped into the dealership and I picked up exactly where I left off. And we think that's really important, and that's what's driving new car buyer satisfaction. So from that standpoint, that's some of the things that the industry, OEMs and dealers can work on.
Sure. Jade, I'd love to get have you jump in there. What actions to talk about what actions dealers and OEMs should take based on the key findings Vanessa just shared.
Yeah, so a few pop to mind first, Jim. Number one, this more activity happening online is creating more cross-shopping. You have an opportunity to reach more and different consumers that maybe wouldn't have considered your brand in the past. And so, how often we have technology and data that leads to a real win for the consumer, a win for the dealer, and a win for the manufacturer. For those that are using data-powered solutions to get to the right customer at the right time, they're really finding efficiencies, but it's creating this flywheel of happier consumers, your marketing dollars going further, the right efficiencies being used. But I do want to come back on that cross-shopping piece too. We see new shopping for used, we see used buyers shopping for new, and then we're starting to see not only incentives coming back on new, but we're seeing a lot of certified pre-owned activity. In fact, we have the history of the Ford Blue Advantage partnership. So that was the first kind of powering other marketplaces experience that we built off of the core Autotrader code base. And so post-pandemic, when everybody else's CPO programs were flattening out, Ford was on this huge trajectory with the Blue Advantage program. And so now we have so many manufacturers hand raising, ready to build these certified pre-owned shopping experiences because it's such an important differentiator for the dealer. It's this peace of mind that's necessary for the consumer, but it is one of the number one ways if a consumer's not able to buy new because of price, but you keep them attached to you, attached to your brand, and you create all of those really important fixed ops and service opportunities, brand loyalty that I know we're going to talk about here in just a minute.
No question about it. And Vanessa and Jade, let's jump into the second key insight. Vanessa, I believe you said it's that buyers were spending more time on the overall shopping journey. Can you map out why that's happening and the importance behind that insight? I'd love to hear your thoughts on that, Jade, as well, right after.
So the consumer, because there's more inventories available, right? And there's better pricing, they're really taking their time in finding the right vehicle at the right price because they don't have to compromise. They get what they want, right? So they're doing what they are looking to do. And with new buyers, they're spending an hour and 50 minutes more on the shopping journey. And then for the used buyers, they're spending almost a half hour more. Again, searching for that right vehicle, cross shopping, as Jade would say, because I keep saying this, it's a bigger buffet now. And with a bigger buffet, I'm going to eat more dishes and I'm going to be more satisfied and I'm going to empower myself in finding out what dishes are there. And that's what consumers are doing. And that's why that hasn't impacted satisfaction levels with the shopping journey and the dealership experience.
Gotcha. Do you want to jump in on that?
I'll add to that. We don't have to be scared as an industry anymore about losing our profit by giving our consumers the ability to take these virtual and e-commerce steps online.
Yeah.
They're not going to not do it just because you don't give it to them. So you got to get out there. Yeah, get those toes in the water on e-commerce. But what we're finally seeing is parity in profitability between what's happening in store and what's happening through all of these digitally enabled virtual tools.
Right.
And so that's really important. And what we hear and see in all of this consumer research now is that when the consumer feels like they're buying as opposed to being sold, they take more time to research what are the right packages. They trust the AI and the F&I bots that we've spent years now refining that are giving them all of this really data-driven detail about where they live. Do they have potholes? Is there salt on the roads? Is there sea spray if they're near the ocean?
Amazing.
And so that education is causing them to buy more on the back end, but it's because they feel like they're self-guiding, they're self-controlling. And so now we see for our e-commerce deals, they're more profitable than in-store deals. So again, win-win-win, because now stores that are recognizing that, they can do more and they can start to get into that game of incrementality because their people in store are doing the things with the people who want to do more steps of the sale in store.
That's right. The consumer truly is in control. Vanessa and Jade, this goes to both of you, but now on to the third insight. Jade, I can't remember a single time that you and I didn't talk about the consumer experience from start to end. I mean, we've had so many discussions, the omni-channel experience. So I'd love to hear, from you and Vanessa saying that, the new car and used car buyers are more aligned, as you just did, the significance and impact it's having on the omni-channel experiences.
Yes.
You mentioned a few of them.
Yeah, so we've talked a lot the last couple of years about click to close.
Yeah.
And click to close looks really different today than it did even a year or two ago. And what we still find is that initial click, it's happening on the right car at the right price in the distance in which the consumer is willing to drive to get it. Distance retailing is important. We'll talk about that in a bit.
Okay.
But in between that initial click and their transaction, their actual purchase, whether in store or online or a combination of both, which almost everyone is, true omni-channel, but they are weeding out dealerships every step of the way. And so I would challenge dealers to start to overhaul the focus of the roles within your store. In fact, just last week I was sitting with a dealership and they said, hey, we're thinking about hiring somebody to just reach out to our past sold customers. And I said, well, what is your BDC doing? He said, oh, they're working the inbound leads. You can't have a BDC person who doesn't know and understand the steps of the sale, how to speak to, who can't run outside right now and do that real-time walk around, who can't go ahead and start speaking to the deal structuring and the F&I pieces. In fact, the folks that should be taking those inbound sales leads right now are your most skilled internet or floor salespeople, your F&I folks that can start moving them down that connected, seamless funnel to give them the experience that they want.
I agree.
The other thing that I want to call out on that is the importance of third-party sites, and I expect Vanessa will mention that stat here in a few minutes, but we see it again and again. Consumers are using third-party sites, and it is the place. And I've even seen some of our industry influencers over the last couple of weeks putting blogs out there talking about there's no place dealers can spend dollars, dollar for dollar, to get the same kind of bang for the buck than you can on third-party marketplaces.
Right.
And sometimes I get in trouble
right.
because I don't think as a dealer you need to be on just one.
Yeah.
If you're going to be on just one, of course you should be on Autotrader, but there are different audiences across the whole ecosystem, but these third-party marketplaces and listing sites are where the consumers are coming to validate price and to validate the experience and to look at the competitive set and to do all of these things that they're doing in that extended online shopping journey.
That's right.
We just finished a test with one of our large dealer groups and a third-party attribution company, and it was amazing. We took only their known customers, so 10 years worth of known consumer records, sold, unsold, fixed ops, and variable ops.
Okay.
And they do a great job. They thought, anybody who's ever done business with me is going to keep doing business with me. And so we used all this really robust data that we have across Cox, our full consumer data platform that powers everything we do, and they're serving advertising for both fixed ops and variable ops to sell a car to these consumers that are known to them, that have already done business with them. And in more than half of the cases, the first click that consumer makes, they see the ad and then they go to a third-party marketplace and search for a car. They come to Autotrader and search.
Wow, you could track that.
And it was
that's amazing.
eye-opening. Well, and that's where those efficiencies, again, now
Sure.
that we can track it all, so if you're partnering with the right folks that can connect all of those data dots, we're seeing huge efficiencies, tier 1, 2, and 3 dollar spend. But what that tells you is if your inventory isn't where the consumers are looking and researching and taking all of those shopping actions before they buy or before they put that lead submission in, you're missing them.
I agree.
And when they get to that marketplace, if they don't see your car, they're not going to go back and wait till you serve them that again come to your website and then go back to a marketplace. They want all of that right there at their fingertips together.
Yep, that's right. Now the last key insight, I believe you said it was around fixed ops opportunities. Let's start with you, Vanessa, on hearing the insights from the results.
So as I mentioned, there is a greater opportunity with fixed op opportunities, right? The sales experience is really high. Like the customer experience is like the most satisfying that we've seen in ever. 81% of the consumers or new consumers are so happy with it.
Wow.
And what we're seeing is that, hey, if they're happy with it, they're going to consider coming back to the dealership to get that service. And we see that 82% of new buyers said, you know what, I'm willing to go back and get my vehicle serviced. And we're seeing that these consumers are buying more F&I products at a higher rate. They're buying more extended warranty. They're buying more service contracts because we're seeing that people want to keep their vehicle a bit longer than usual because of inflation and all these different monetary and economic situations.
Sure.
So we're seeing that. So therefore, there's a bigger opportunity to do that. And we're seeing that consumers are more willing to do that. So that's why we keep telling our clients, hey, when you're delivering the vehicle to the customers, make sure you introduce them to the service advisor while they're at the dealership. Build that rapport right away. So then that way it's top of mind when the consumer is ready to come back and get their vehicle serviced, because it's inevitable.
Yeah, for sure. As we tie up our conversation here, I'll start with you, Vanessa, on paving the way for a more successful road forward. What advice can you give dealers to do now to set their dealership up for even more success in the future based on the key insights from the results of the Cox annual car buyer journey study?
We'll definitely focus on more continuously improving the customer experience. And by doing that, you're providing the right digital tools for them to buy seamlessly, whether they do it online or in person or both, because that's what they want. They want that transparency. They want that seamlessness. But also, I'm going to say this, our customers are saying one of the ways for you to make the experience even better is also not pressure me into the sale, but be a guide, be a partner as I'm making this decision. So provide me with the right tools, guide me through it, and give me the knowledge. Therefore, I'm making the best decision that I can.
Yeah, for sure. I'll ask the same question to you, Jade. What's your biggest piece of advice based on the insights from that your team's identified from the car buyer journey study? And what actions do you believe is urging dealers and the industry on a whole to take?
Yeah, so I say refine the roles in your store.
Okay.
Know who is the first person talking to the consumer. Know that they can answer all the questions that they have with all of that relevant, rich data that is now coming in that initial contact. Refine the roles and the processes in your service drive, because it is the best place for you to acquire inventory and to keep those consumers attached to you, and to make sure that you're partnering with the right data-driven companies that can now connect all of these dots across the ecosystem and close those blind spots that we've had for so many years for how we measure return on investment and return on advertising spend.
No question about it. Yeah. You guys have really brought it right down to a science, and the car buyer journey study is so valuable to dealers. There's no question about it, and OEM executives. But so this has been great. Valuable insights, tips, and examples that you've shared that all dealerships and OEMs can benefit from. Jade Terreberry, Senior Director of Strategic Development with Autotrader, and Kelley Blue Book, and Vanessa Ton, who is the Senior Manager of Research and Market Intelligence for Cox Automotive. Thank you both very much for joining me here today on the show.
Jim, thanks for having us today.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you.
And as always, we want to make sure that your listeners check out b2b.autotrader.com/fortheroadforward. And there's a really special episode on there with Jim, Mr. Jim Fitzpatrick right here, from just a few weeks ago, where you shared so many incredible insights with the industry for what's coming and actions to take and focus areas for 2025. So thanks for doing that. And as always,
thanks for having me.
Glad to be here with you.
Absolutely. Great. Thanks so much. Thanks, Vanessa.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching Inside Automotive with Jim Fitzpatrick.